and didn't just show me where souls wait before birth. It showed me what the church has been hiding about Jesus for 2,000 years. And what I discovered that night in the Nevada desert will shatter everything you think you know about divine purpose. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about the scientific truth behind consciousness that both extraterrestrial beings and ancient masters understood, but was deliberately buried. For centuries, we've been told we're sinners waiting for salvation. What if that's the lie that keeps us powerless? What this being revealed about pre-birth soul contracts and Christ's actual mission isn't just controversial, it's irreversible. Once you see how vibration, not worship, creates reality, there's no going back to comfortable ignorance. This will set you free from spiritual guilt, but it might cost you every belief you were raised with. If you're ready to remember what your soul knew before you were born, subscribe and hit that bell. Because what happened to Daniel Rourke on those railroad tracks will force you to choose between the story you've been told and the power you've always had. Now let me tell you how a broken man's silent cry was answered by something beyond this world. Daniel Rourke was 45 years old. He walked alone on the 447 tracks outside Reno, Nevada. The 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. Same route, same cold, same silence. It was late December 2017. Temperature hovered around 38 degrees. Wind cut through his jacket like it wasn't even there. Daniel's job was simple. Inspect the rails, check for damage, report anything unusual. He'd been doing it for 12 years. 12 years of walking through darkness while the rest of the world slept. His chest felt hollow. Had felt that way for 3 years now, ever since the divorce. He tried not to think about it, but out here, alone under the massive Nevada sky, there was nothing else to think about. Sarah had left him in 2014, took their daughter Emma with her. Emma was 17 now, lived 2 hours away in Carson City. They barely spoke. Daniel had tried, called every week at first, then every month. Then he stopped trying. Not because he didn't care, because every time he heard her voice, he heard the disappointment, the distance, the politeness that told him he'd become a stranger to his own daughter. He deserved it. That's what he told himself. He'd been absent even when he was present, working double shifts, coming home exhausted, falling asleep on the couch before dinner. Sarah had begged him to be there, really there, but he didn't know how. So she left, and Emma went with her. And Daniel stayed in Reno with his railroad job and his empty apartment and nights that stretched forever. The work became his anesthesia. Walk the tracks, check the bolts, look for cracks in the rails. Don't think, don't feel, just move. But lately, even that wasn't working. Lately, Daniel felt like he was disappearing, like he was becoming invisible. Not just to other people, to himself. He hadn't prayed in over a year. Used to pray every night. Grew up Baptist. His mother had taken him to church every Sunday until he was 18. He'd believed then, really believed. But somewhere along the way, he'd stopped feeling anything when he prayed. Stopped feeling like anyone was listening. God felt as distant as his daughter, as his ex-wife, as the person he used to be before everything fell apart. Daniel walked past mile marker 23. The desert stretched out on both sides. Dark, empty, beautiful in a way that made him feel even more alone. He thought about the last conversation with Emma, 2 months ago, her birthday. He'd called, she'd answered. They'd talked for 6 minutes. How's school? Fine. You still thinking about college? Yeah, maybe. Your mom doing okay? She's good. Silence. Long, painful silence. Well, happy birthday, sweetheart. Thanks, Dad. And that was it. Daniel had sat in his truck afterward, staring at his phone, wanting to call back, wanting to say something real, something that mattered. But he didn't know what that was anymore. He kicked a loose stone off the tracks. It skittered into the darkness. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was all his life would ever be. Walking through the dark, alone, going through motions, waiting for what? He didn't even know. Daniel stopped walking, stood still in the middle of the tracks. The wind picked up, cold against his face. He looked up at the stars, thousands of them, millions. They looked so far away, so unreachable. His mother used to say God was up there, watching, caring, loving everyone. Daniel didn't believe that anymore. If God was watching, why did everything feel so meaningless? Why did good people suffer? Why did marriages fall apart? Why did daughters grow distant from fathers who loved them? He felt something rise in his chest, something he'd been pushing down for years. Anger, sadness, exhaustion, all mixed together. "I don't know what I'm doing here," he said out loud to the empty desert. His voice sounded small, swallowed by the wind. "I don't know what any of this is for." He wasn't praying, wasn't asking for anything, just speaking, letting words escape that he'd been holding inside. "If there's something more than this, if there's a reason, I need to know." Daniel closed his eyes, breathed out slowly. "Because I can't keep doing this." He stood there for a long moment, waiting. For what? He didn't know. Nothing happened. Of course nothing happened. He opened his eyes, started walking again. The tracks stretched ahead into darkness. Same as always. Daniel pulled his jacket tighter, checked his watch. 2:47 a.m. Still 4 more hours until his shift ended. 4 more hours of walking alone. 4 more hours of trying not to think about everything he'd lost, everything he'd never get back. The desert wind whispered around him, and somewhere in the cold Nevada night, something heard the question he'd asked. Something was already answering. The air changed. Daniel felt it before he saw anything. A shift, like pressure dropping before a storm, but different, heavier, peaceful, both at the same time. He stopped walking, looked around. Nothing. Just darkness and desert and the railroad tracks cutting through empty land. But something was different. The wind had stopped, completely. The desert had gone silent in a way that felt wrong, not natural. Daniel's pulse quickened. Then he felt it, a vibration, not in the ground, in his chest, like standing too close to a subwoofer, a frequency he felt more than heard. "What the hell?" The lights appeared suddenly, 3 of them, moving low over the tracks about 200 yards ahead. Daniel froze. They weren't headlights, weren't helicopters, moved too smoothly, too deliberately. They pulsed in rhythm, soft yellow-white glow, hovering maybe 15 feet off the ground. His brain tried to make sense of it. Train? No. Drones? Maybe. But drones didn't move like that. The lights drifted closer, slow, intentional. Daniel took a step back. His hand moved to his radio, but he didn't press the button, because part of him, some quiet part buried deep, wanted to see what this was. The lights grew brighter as they approached. The air around them shimmered, heat waves in the cold desert night. Then the mist came. It rolled across the ground like fog, but it glowed, soft golden-white luminescence that seemed to generate its own light. Daniel's heart hammered. His mouth went dry. "This isn't real," he whispered. "I'm hallucinating. Exhaustion. That's all this is." But it felt real, more real than anything had felt in years. The lights stopped about 50 feet away, hovering, waiting. The mist thickened around them. And then, a figure stepped out. No, not stepped, emerged, like it had always been there, and only now decided to be visible. Daniel's breath caught. The being was small, maybe 4 feet tall, thin, smooth gray skin that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The head was larger than it should be, proportions all wrong for a human, and the eyes, black, completely black, large and almond-shaped. No whites, no iris, just depth. But they weren't cold, weren't threatening. They were compassionate, calm, like looking into the eyes of someone who understood suffering. Daniel wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at him to turn around and sprint back to his truck, but he couldn't move. The being tilted its head slightly, studying him, and then Daniel heard it, not with his ears, in his mind. A voice that wasn't a voice, words that weren't words. "You asked for truth." Daniel's legs went weak. He stumbled backward. What are you?" The being didn't speak, but the answer came anyway, direct into his consciousness. A guide, a reminder. "You called," we answered. "I didn't call anyone." Daniel's voice cracked. "I didn't. You did. Tonight, on these tracks. You asked if there was something more." Daniel's mind reeled. He had asked that, minutes ago, alone in the dark. How did this thing know? "This isn't happening." He shook his head. "This is stress, lack of sleep. You're awake, more awake than you've been in years." The being moved closer, not walking, gliding. Its movements were too smooth, too fluid. Daniel took another step back. His heel caught on the rail. He almost fell. "Stay away from me." The being stopped. Those black eyes held his gaze. "I mean you no harm, Daniel Rourke." Hearing his name in his head made everything worse, made it more real. "How do you know my name?" "I know your pain, your loss, your daughter's name, Emma. I know you feel invisible, lost, like you were born in the wrong place." Daniel's chest tightened. Tears burned behind his eyes. "Stop it. I know you stopped believing anyone was listening." "I said stop, but I am listening. And I am here to show you something you forgot." "Forgot what?" Daniel's voice broke. "What could you possibly show me?" The being extended one thin arm toward him. The gesture was gentle, almost human. "Who you were before you were born. Why you chose this life. Why every moment, even the painful ones, was part of your plan." Daniel stared at the outstretched hand. Part of him wanted to run, get in his truck, drive away, pretend this never happened. But another part, the part that had been screaming into the void for years, wanted to know, needed to know. "What if this kills me?" he whispered. "What if it saves you?" The mist swirled around them. The lights pulsed softly. The desert held its breath. Daniel looked at the being's hand, at those deep black eyes, at the impossible thing standing in front of him on railroad tracks in the middle of nowhere. He thought about Emma, about Sarah, about his empty apartment and endless nights, about the question he'd asked the universe just minutes ago, and he made a choice. Daniel reached out, took the being's hand. It was warm, solid, real. The moment their hands touched, the world dissolved into light. Daniel's knees buckled. The being caught him, not physically, mentally, like invisible hands steadying his mind. "Breathe. You're safe." "Safe?" Daniel gasped. What did you do to me?" "Showed you I'm real. That this is real." Daniel looked down at his hands. They were shaking. His whole body was shaking. The mist had cleared. They stood in a small clearing between rock formations. He didn't remember walking here, didn't remember leaving the tracks. "Where are we?" "Same place, different frequency." "That doesn't make sense." "It will." The being stood a few feet away, still, patient, those black eyes watching him with something that felt like kindness. Daniel tried to stand straight. His legs felt weak. His head spun. "I need to sit down." "Then sit." He dropped to the ground. Cold sand beneath him, stars overhead. Everything looked normal, except nothing was normal. "This is exhaustion," Daniel said. "I haven't slept properly in weeks. My mind is..." "Your mind is fine. You're not hallucinating." "How do I know that?" "Because hallucinations don't answer back." Daniel laughed. It came out bitter, broken. "Fair point." He looked at the being, really looked. The smooth gray skin, the thin limbs, the oversized head. Everything about it was wrong, impossible, but it was here, and so was he. "What do you want from me?" Daniel asked quietly. "Nothing. I'm here because you asked. I asked to know if there was something more. I didn't ask for this. This is how we answer." Daniel rubbed his face with both hands, tried to think clearly. "Okay, let's say this is real. Let's say you're actually here. Why me? I'm nobody. Just a railroad worker in the middle of nowhere. You're a soul who forgot his purpose." "My purpose?" Daniel's voice rose. "My purpose was to fail at marriage, to lose my daughter, to walk train tracks alone every night wondering why I'm even alive." "Yes." The word hit him like a punch. "What? You chose those experiences. Before you were born. You chose them. That's insane. Nobody would choose this. You did, because you wanted to learn something." Daniel stood up fast. Anger surged through him. "Learn what?" "How to be miserable. How to fail everyone I love. How to remember who you are." "I know who I am. I'm a divorced 45-year-old man with a daughter who doesn't want to talk to me. That's what you are, not who." Daniel turned away, breathing hard. His chest felt tight. Behind him, a soft golden light began to form. He felt its warmth on his back. "Come, let me show you." "Show me what?" "Who you were before Daniel Rourke existed." Daniel turned around slowly. The light was growing. Soft, beautiful. It didn't hurt to look at. The being stood in front of it, hand extended again. "You've been asking the universe for answers for 3 years. I'm offering them, but you have to choose to receive them." "What if I say no?" "Then you go back to your truck, finish your shift, continue your life exactly as it was." Daniel thought about that. His empty apartment, his silent phone, his nights walking alone. And if I say yes, then you remember. And remembering changes everything. The golden light pulsed gently. Daniel felt something stir in his chest, something old, buried, a memory that wasn't quite a memory. He thought about Emma, the way she used to hug him when she was little, arms wrapped tight around his neck, telling him she loved him. When had he lost that? When did he become someone she couldn't wait to get off the phone with? The pain of it cut deeper than anything physical ever had. Will this help me fix things with her? It will help you understand why things unfolded as they did. That's not the same as fixing it. No, but understanding is the first step toward healing. Daniel closed his eyes, felt tears threatening again. I don't know if I can handle more pain. The pain you're carrying now is from not understanding. Truth brings peace, even when it's difficult. Daniel opened his eyes, looked at the being, at that impossibly calm presence. How do I know you're not lying? How do I know this isn't some trick? You don't. You have to trust. I don't trust easily anymore. I know, but trust isn't about certainty. It's about willingness. The golden light grew brighter, not harsh, inviting, like a door opening. Daniel felt something shift inside him. The anger was still there. The pain was still there. But underneath it, curiosity, deep and genuine. What if this was real? What if there were answers? What if his entire life, the divorce, the distance, the loneliness, what if it all meant something? The being made a simple gesture, palm up, an invitation. I won't force you, but I will tell you this. You've been praying for years, asking God why, asking the universe for meaning. This is the response. Daniel's throat tightened. I stopped praying. No, you stopped using words, but your soul never stopped asking. Something broke open in Daniel's chest, a dam he'd been holding back for years. He thought about his mother, dead 6 years now. She used to tell him God had a plan, even when things hurt, even when nothing made sense. He'd stopped believing that. But standing here, in this impossible moment, with this impossible being, maybe, Daniel took a breath, deep and slow. Okay, show me, whatever you need to show me, I'm ready. Are you certain? Daniel nodded. He didn't feel certain, but he felt willing, and maybe that was enough. The being moved closer. The golden light expanded around them both. Then come, remember who you were before you forgot. Daniel stepped forward, into the light, into the unknown, and the desert disappeared completely. Block 4, the dimensional corridor. The light didn't blind him. It swallowed him. Daniel felt his body dissolve, not painfully, like becoming water, like becoming air. The ground vanished. The sky vanished. Everything familiar disappeared. And then, rebuilding. Colors he'd never seen before. Sounds that weren't sounds. A sense of movement without moving. Don't resist. Let yourself flow. The being's voice anchored him, kept him from panicking. Daniel tried to speak but had no mouth, tried to breathe but had no lungs. Yet somehow he was still here, still aware, still himself. The light formed into something, a corridor, but not made of walls, made of geometry, living geometry, spirals and patterns that shifted and pulsed. The being glided ahead of him, not walking, floating, moving through space like thought moves through mind. Daniel followed, or he thought he followed. Hard to tell. Distance worked differently here. Where are we? Between, not physical, not purely spiritual. The space where consciousness creates reality. Shapes floated past them. Symbols Daniel had never seen but somehow recognized. Ancient, older than human language, older than Earth itself. And then the windows appeared. Not windows, more like living screens. Moments, memories, but not his memories. No, wait, they were his memories. He saw himself at 7 years old, sitting in church next to his mother, singing hymns, believing every word. He saw himself at 19, meeting Sarah for the first time, the way his heart had jumped, the certainty that she was the one. He saw their wedding day, her smile, his promises, both of them so sure. And then darker moments, working late nights, missing dinners, Sarah's disappointed face, again and again. Emma at 12, asking why Daddy was never home. Daniel tried to look away, but here there was nowhere to look away to. Painful? Yes. Good. Pain means you're feeling. Feeling means you're alive. Another window opened. The divorce papers, Sarah's signature, his shaking hands, Emma crying in her room, thinking he couldn't hear her. I failed them. No. The being's voice was firm. You experienced what you came to experience. That's just a pretty way of saying I messed up. Is it? More windows, more moments. But now, different perspective. Daniel saw himself working late, but now he felt why. The fear, the anxiety, trying to provide, trying to be enough, drowning in the pressure of it all. He saw Sarah leaving, but now he felt her pain too. Her loneliness, her exhaustion, how much she'd tried before giving up. He saw Emma, growing distant, but underneath her coldness, fear. Fear that she wasn't enough to make her father stay present. Nothing was as simple as you thought. No, Daniel whispered. It wasn't, and none of it was punishment. The corridor shifted, brightened. A new light formed, golden, warm, different from the white-blue of the spirals. Daniel felt it before he saw it. A presence, familiar somehow, like remembering a song you'd forgotten you knew. What is that? Love, pure love. The frequency that creates and sustains all things. The golden light grew stronger. Daniel felt it touch his chest, not physically, deeper than physically. Something inside him responded, something he'd buried under years of disappointment and shame. Hope. You called it God. Others call it Source. The name doesn't matter. The truth is the same. It feels, Daniel couldn't find words, alive. Because it is. Consciousness isn't created by matter. Matter is created by consciousness. The golden light pulsed, and within it, Daniel saw a figure. Not clearly, not with human features, but undeniably there. A presence of such compassion it made his chest ache. Who is that? The one you've been praying to. The one you thought abandoned you. Jesus? One name for one expression of infinite love. Yes, Daniel felt tears come. But here in this place he had no eyes to cry with. The emotion just existed, pure and overwhelming. He's real. He's more real than anything you've touched with human hands. The figure in the golden light reached toward him, not with hands, with intention, with love that asked nothing and gave everything. He is the consciousness that remembered love when others forgot. He came to earth to show what's possible when a soul operates from that frequency. But, the church said, the church interpreted, translated, sometimes lost meaning in translation. Jesus didn't come to be worshipped. He came to be remembered. I don't understand. He came to show you what you are, what every human is. Consciousness capable of creating through love. The corridor expanded. The golden light spread through everything. Daniel felt it enter him. Warm, gentle, dissolving something hard and old inside his chest. For the first time in 3 years he felt peace, not the absence of pain, something deeper, the presence of understanding. This is what you forgot. This is what every human forgets when they're born, that you are not separate from this love. You are this love, experiencing itself in physical form. Daniel wanted to argue, wanted to say he was too broken, too flawed, too human for that to be true. But the golden light held him, and in its presence, those arguments dissolved like mist. The journey ahead will show you more. But first, you must see where you came from. The corridor shifted again. The golden light receded slightly. And ahead, a new opening, brighter than everything before it. Ready? Daniel didn't know, but he said yes anyway. The being moved forward. Daniel followed, and they stepped into the place where souls wait before birth. The space opened into something impossible, a field of light, living light that breathed and moved like ocean waves. Daniel floated above it. No body, just awareness. This is where you were before. Before what? Before Daniel Rourke. Before Earth. Before physical form. The field below pulsed with countless points of light, each one distinct, each one aware. Are those souls, consciousness preparing for incarnation? Daniel watched them move. Some clustered together, others drifted alone, all glowing with internal light. And then he saw himself, not as Daniel, as something older, something that existed before names or faces, a point of light among millions, bright, curious, eager. That's me? That's who you were, who you still are underneath the human experience. His soul self moved through the field, approached other lights, communicated beyond language, pure intention. pure understanding. What am I doing? Planning, choosing, designing your next life. I chose to be born. Every soul does. Earth is a school, and you enrolled. Daniel watched as his soul self brightened with excitement. It moved toward a cluster of other lights. One light drew close. Female energy, warm and fierce. Sarah, yes, your soul partner across many lifetimes. We planned the marriage. You planned to meet, to love, to challenge each other. The divorce too? Yes. The word hung in the vast space. Why would I choose that pain? Because pain teaches what comfort cannot. Another light joined them. Smaller, younger energy, bright like a star. Daniel knew immediately. Emma, your daughter. She agreed to be born through you. She chose me as her father. You chose each other. Every significant relationship is a prearranged appointment. The three lights pulsed together, communicating, planning. Daniel saw it unfold. The blueprint of his life made of light. Born in 1972. Childhood. His mother. The church. Meeting Sarah at 19. Wedding at 23. Emma 2 years later. And then the hard parts. Working long hours, distance growing, arguments, silence, separation. All of it laid out like scenes in a play. I saw all this before I was born. You chose all this before you were born. Why choose suffering? Because growth requires resistance. A soul doesn't expand without challenge. Daniel watched his soul self review the plan. Saw it nod, accept, agree. I wanted this. You wanted the lessons this would teach. The divorce at 42, Emma moving away, the empty apartment, the railroad job, nights alone in the desert, walking, questioning, breaking, and tonight, this moment. I planned meeting you. You planned an awakening. You knew you would remember eventually. Remember what? Who you are, why you're here, that nothing was ever broken. Daniel felt something release, the guilt, the shame, the belief he'd failed at being human. I wasn't supposed to keep Sarah or stay close to Emma. You were supposed to experience losing them, to feel separation, because in feeling it deeply, you'd eventually remember that separation is illusion. The field of souls pulsed below, thousands of lights preparing for their own journeys. They all choose their challenges. Everyone. Some choose poverty, some choose illness, some choose loss to learn love. Why don't we remember when we're born? Because remembering would defeat the purpose. You came to experience limitation, to feel separation, to work your way back to love from a place of forgetting. That seems cruel. Or is it the most profound gift? The ability to discover your own nature through experience? Daniel watched his soul self one more time, saw it shine with determination. It knew what was coming. The pain, the confusion, the darkness, and it chose anyway. Because on the other side was understanding, growth, evolution. You were never a victim, Daniel. You were always a volunteer. The words landed like a key turning in a lock. The pain of his life didn't disappear, but the meaning changed. Not punishment, curriculum, not random, designed, not failure. Exactly what he'd signed up for. Daniel felt tears that couldn't fall, grief and relief mixing. I chose this. You chose this. All of it. All of it. The field began to fade, the lights dimming. There's more to see. Are you ready? Yes. The being moved forward. Daniel followed, and the corridor opened into something even more profound. The golden light returned. This time it didn't just glow. It formed, shaped itself into something Daniel's consciousness could comprehend. A figure, humanoid but not human, made entirely of light that pulsed with its own heartbeat. The presence was overwhelming, not in force but in love. Pure, unconditional, infinite love. Daniel felt it before understanding it. The being beside him spoke softly. This is the consciousness you called Jesus. The figure didn't speak. Understanding flowed directly into Daniel's awareness. Not words. Knowing. He's real. More real than the physical world you think of as solid. The church said he was God's only son, that he died for our sins. The church interpreted through human limitation. Some meaning was preserved. Much was lost. The figure moved closer. Daniel felt its warmth, not heat. Love as a tangible force. Jesus was not God's only son. He was consciousness remembering it was God's son. And in that remembering, he showed what all humans are capable of. We're all God's children. You're all God experiencing itself in individual form. Jesus simply remembered that fully. Images appeared around the figure, not visions. Resonances, frequencies made visible. Jesus healing, not through magic, through love. Actual love operating as a force that reorganized matter. When you love someone completely, no judgment, no condition, something happens in your body. You feel it in your chest. That feeling is real energy. Jesus mastered it. Daniel knew that feeling, had felt it with Emma when she was born. At that frequency, miracles aren't supernatural, they're natural. Another image, Jesus calming a storm, not commanding nature, becoming so peaceful internally that the external world responded. Your inner state affects outer reality. Jesus proved it. Daniel watched the figure move through these resonances. Each gesture radiated compassion. The church said he came to die for us. He came to show you how to live. His death was part of the journey, but the point was demonstrating that consciousness survives, that love is stronger than death, so we don't need to be saved. You were never lost. You only forgot. Jesus came to help you remember. The golden light intensified. Daniel felt it enter him. Not invasion, homecoming. Something ancient responded, something that predated Daniel Rourke by thousands of lifetimes. He didn't come to be worshipped. He came to be remembered, to remind you that you carry the same light. I don't feel like I have that light, because you judge yourself. Jesus didn't judge, he simply loved. And in that love, he accessed power that seems impossible to those operating from fear. Every moment Daniel had spent in shame, in guilt, in self-hatred. None of it brought him closer to God. It only pushed him from his own divine nature. How do I love like that? Start with yourself. Forgive yourself for being human. The figure reached toward Daniel, a hand made of pure light. Where it touched his chest, something broke open. Years of pain, decades of believing he wasn't enough, lifetimes of forgetting, all dissolved in that touch. Daniel felt himself crying. Pure release, pure letting go. You're not separate from God, Daniel. Separation is the illusion you came to experience, so you could remember union. I feel it now. Good. When you return to physical form, you'll need this. The golden light pulsed in rhythm, like a heartbeat. Love is not a feeling, it's a frequency, the organizing principle of reality. When you operate from love, you align with the creative force of the universe. That's what Jesus did. That's what Jesus showed is possible for everyone, including you. The weight of years lifted, the belief that he was broken, that he'd failed, that his life was meaningless, all lies. Now he understood. The pain had purpose, the challenges were curriculum, and underneath it all was love. God is not separate from you, judging from above. God is the consciousness you're made of. So when I pray, you're talking to your highest self. The part that never forgot it was divine. The figure began to fade, receding. But before it disappeared, one more transmission. To love is to remember. To suffer is to try to remember. Now you can stop trying and simply remember. The corridor pulsed with golden light. You are loved. You are love. You always were. Ready to see more? Daniel nodded. Yes. And the journey continued. The corridor shifted again. This time the images that appeared weren't abstract. They were specific, personal, painful. Daniel saw himself at 37, sitting in his truck after a 12-hour shift, staring at his phone, Sarah's number on the screen. He'd wanted to call, to apologize, to try, but he didn't press dial. He watched himself put the phone down, drive home, fall asleep alone. You abandoned connection here. I was tired. You were afraid. Another scene. Daniel at church, 2 months after the divorce was finalized, sitting in the back pew, listening to the sermon about God's plan. He saw himself stand up, walk out mid-service, never return. You abandoned faith here because it didn't help. Praying didn't save my marriage. Prayer isn't negotiation, it's alignment. More scenes came faster now, each one a moment where Daniel had chosen to shut down rather than stay open. Arguments with Sarah where he went silent instead of fighting. Calls from Emma he let go to voicemail. Nights alone where he drank instead of feeling. Every moment of retreat. Every choice to numb rather than heal. You see yourself as victim in these memories. I was hurting. Yes, but look closer. The being made a gesture. The scenes played again, but this time from different angles. Daniel saw Sarah crying after their arguments. Not because she wanted to hurt him, because she felt invisible. He saw Emma leaving voicemails, her voice small, uncertain, hoping Dad would call back. He saw his own face in these moments. Not cruel, not evil, just absent, shut down, disconnected from himself and everyone around him. You didn't abandon them. You abandoned yourself first. The words cut deep. I didn't know how to do it differently. I know. And that's not judgment. That's just truth. Daniel felt something crack in his chest, a dam he'd been holding for years. The Creator never left you, Daniel. You left yourself. You disconnected from your own heart because the pain was too much. And once you disconnected from yourself, everyone else became unreachable. A new scene appeared, the one Daniel had been dreading. Emma at 14, sitting at the kitchen table. Sarah had just told her about the divorce. Emma's face crumbled. She looked at Daniel. "Why, Dad?" And Daniel had no answer, just stood there, silent, frozen. Emma ran to her room, slammed the door. Daniel watched himself stand in that kitchen, wanted to follow her, wanted to explain, but he didn't move. This is the moment that haunts you most. Yes, you believe you failed her here. I did fail her. No, you were human, imperfect, doing your best with the consciousness you had at the time. That's not enough. It's everything. The golden light returned, soft, warm. It wrapped around the memory of teenage Emma crying in her room, and Daniel felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. The love, not the guilt, not the shame, the actual love he had for his daughter. It rose up from somewhere deep, somewhere he'd buried it because feeling it hurt too much when she was so far away. But now, it surfaced, pure, uncomplicated, real. You never stopped loving her. No, you just stopped believing you had the right to. Daniel felt tears come, real ones this time, not metaphorical. Actual tears streaming down a face he'd forgotten he had. He was back in his body, kneeling on the ground in the clearing. The being stood beside him. The golden light surrounded them both. He sobbed, deep, wrenching sobs that came from years of holding everything in. The being placed a hand on his shoulder. The touch was light, but grounding. Let it out. You've been carrying this alone for too long. I ruined everything. No, you experienced what you came to experience, and now you're releasing what you no longer need to carry. Daniel cried for Emma, for Sarah, for his mother who died believing he'd be okay, for himself, for the man who'd tried so hard and felt like he'd failed at everything that mattered. The golden light pulsed with each sob, not judging, not fixing, just holding space. Nothing is lost, Daniel. Your relationship with Emma isn't over. It's just sleeping, and love never dies. It only waits to be remembered. How do I fix it? You don't fix it. You return to it, with honesty, with presence, with the willingness to be vulnerable. What if she doesn't want that? Then you love her anyway, without condition, without needing her to respond a certain way. That's what Jesus demonstrated. Love that gives without requiring return. Daniel wiped his face. His hands were shaking. I don't know if I can do that. You already are, right now, feeling this, letting yourself break open. This is the beginning. The corridor around them brightened, responded to his release, to his willingness to finally feel what he'd been running from. The weight you've carried wasn't punishment from God. It was resistance to your own humanity. The moment you accept that you're imperfect, that you're supposed to be imperfect, the weight dissolves. Daniel breathed, slowly, deeply. Something had shifted. The pain was still there, but it felt different now. Not like a prison, like a teacher. Ready to understand why? Daniel nodded, exhausted but also lighter than he'd been in years. Yes. Then let me show you how this works. How consciousness creates, how love operates, how you've been doing this all along without knowing it. The being stood, extended a hand. Daniel took it, rose to his feet, and the corridor opened into the final teaching. The space transformed into something like a laboratory, but not sterile, alive. Waves of color moved through the air, patterns that shifted and pulsed in response to something. Everything vibrates. The being gestured to the patterns around them. Matter, energy, thought, emotion, all of it is vibration at different frequencies. Daniel watched the colors move, some fast, Some slow, some bright, some dim. What am I looking at? Reality, the actual structure of existence. One of the patterns moved closer. It looked like sound waves made visible, oscillating, rhythmic. This is your thought pattern, right now, in this moment. Daniel stared at it. The wave moved steadily, calm but curious. Now think about Emma. He did, and immediately the pattern changed, became more complex, layers forming, some waves rising, some falling. See? Thought creates form before matter ever appears. Consciousness shapes reality at the quantum level. I don't understand quantum anything. You don't need to. Just understand this. What you think consistently becomes what you experience eventually. Another pattern appeared. This one jagged, chaotic. This was your frequency 3 years ago. After the divorce, lost, angry, confused. Daniel recognized it somehow. It felt like how those years felt. And this, a new pattern, smooth, flowing, peaceful. This is the frequency Jesus operated from. Pure love, no resistance, no fear, just alignment with creative source. He was always like that. He trained himself to be. Through meditation, prayer, conscious practice, he mastered his own frequency. The smooth pattern moved through space, and where it touched the chaotic pattern, something remarkable happened. The chaos began to organize, to smooth, to match the peaceful frequency. This is how he healed, not through magic, through resonance. High frequency raises low frequency when they come into contact. Daniel watched the patterns merge, become one. So when he touched sick people, he was so aligned with love that their bodies remembered what health felt like. Cells reorganized to match his frequency. That's possible. You do it all the time without knowing. When you walk into a room angry, people feel it. When you're peaceful, they relax. You're constantly broadcasting and receiving frequency. The being showed him more patterns, dozens of them moving through the space. Fear contracts, creates tight, small patterns. Closes possibility. Daniel saw a pattern shrink, collapse inward. Love expands, creates open, flowing patterns, invites possibility. Another pattern grew, spread outward like ripples on water. You've been operating from fear frequency for 3 years. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear that you're not enough. The contracted pattern pulsed weakly, and that frequency created more experiences that matched it, more isolation, more evidence that you were alone. I created my own suffering. You perpetuated it, not consciously, but yes, Daniel felt the weight of that. But also, hope. If I created it, I can uncreate it. Yes, that's exactly right. The being moved closer. Intention is the seed. What you focus on with emotion and belief begins to manifest. So if I focus on reconnecting with Emma, with genuine love, not desperate need, yes, the frequency you emit will begin to shift circumstances. That sounds too simple. Simple doesn't mean easy. Changing your frequency requires changing your thoughts, your beliefs, your habitual patterns. That's the hardest work humans do. Daniel looked at his own pattern again. It had changed since entering this place. Still chaotic in places, but also organizing. The heart is your tool. When you feel love, real love, not attachment, you access the same creative force Jesus used. How do I feel that when everything's broken? Start small. Find one thing you're grateful for, one moment of beauty, one memory of genuine connection. Feel it fully. Let it expand in your chest. Daniel thought about Emma as a baby, the way she'd grabbed his finger, how small her hand was, how much trust in that grip. His pattern shifted, brightened, expanded. There, you just did it. I just remembered something. Memory charged with love creates present moment frequency, and present moment frequency creates future reality. The patterns around them began to dance, responding to Daniel's shift. This is what Jesus tried to teach. Love isn't just nice philosophy. It's technology. It's the operating system of the universe. Daniel felt something click into place. All those years of praying, begging God to fix things, he'd been asking from fear, from desperation, from the belief he was powerless. But the whole time, the power was inside him, in his ability to choose his frequency, his thoughts, his focus. You're not a victim of circumstance. You're a creator within it. I wasted so much time. No, you learned what you came to learn. And now you're ready for what comes next. The corridor pulsed, every wave moving in harmony now. Daniel's pattern had stabilized, still imperfect, still human, but aligned, finally aligned. Ready to return, Daniel looked at the being, at this impossible guide who'd shown him everything. Will I remember this? Enough. The specifics may fade, but the knowing will remain. Thank you. Thank yourself. You did the hardest part. You stayed open. The patterns began to fade, the corridor preparing to release him, back to the desert, back to his life. But he wasn't the same man who'd walked those tracks hours ago. He'd remembered, and that changed everything. The patterns stabilized into a new image, Daniel's life, but not as separate moments, as one continuous thread. Birth, childhood, Sarah, Emma, divorce, desert nights. This moment, all connected, all purposeful. This is your soul's curriculum. Daniel watched the thread weave through time, each knot a challenge, each smooth section a moment of peace. It all meant something. It all means something. Present tense. The meaning doesn't end. The thread glowed brighter at certain points. The divorce, the loneliness. Tonight, your isolation served a purpose. What purpose? It just hurt. It made you look inward. Most humans spend their whole lives distracted, busy, surrounded. You had silence. And in that silence, you finally asked the real questions. Daniel saw himself walking the tracks, night after night, alone with his thoughts. He'd hated it. But now, I was being prepared. You were preparing yourself. The universe doesn't do things to you. It responds to what you're ready for. A new image formed. Not the past. The future. Possibility. Not certainty, but potential. Daniel saw himself back at work, but different. Present. Actually seeing the people around him. A coworker struggling. Daniel offering help. Not advice, just presence. Small acts of kindness change frequency more than grand gestures. He saw himself in a grocery store, making eye contact with the cashier, actually smiling, asking how her day was. That matters? Everything matters. Every interaction is an exchange of frequency. You have no idea how much a genuine smile can shift someone's entire day. More images. Daniel at a coffee shop, laptop open, writing. What am I writing? Your experience, when you're ready. Not to preach, not to convince, just to share. Some people will need to read what you learned tonight. The image shifted. Daniel's phone, Emma's name on the screen. He was calling her. In this possible future. Actually calling. What will I say? The truth. That you're sorry. That you love her. That you understand why she's distant. And that you're not calling to fix anything. Just to let her know you're here. What if she doesn't answer? Then you leave a voicemail, and you call again next week. And the week after. Not from desperation. From love. Eventually, she'll feel the difference. Daniel felt his chest tighten. Hope mixed with fear. I don't want to push her away more. You won't, because you're not the same person who pushed her away before. You're operating from a different frequency now. The images continued. Small moments, normal moments. Daniel at a diner, talking to a stranger about life. Daniel at his apartment, actually cleaning, actually caring about his space. Daniel on the tracks, but not hunched in misery, walking with purpose. Your life doesn't need to be extraordinary to be meaningful. Then what makes it meaningful? Presence, consciousness, choosing love over fear in 1,000 small moments. Daniel saw himself helping another railroad worker fix a broken coupling, laughing at something the guy said. Such a simple moment. But in it, he looked alive. You've been sleepwalking for 3 years. This is you awake. It looks so normal, because it is. Awakening doesn't mean levitating or seeing angels. It means being fully present in ordinary life. The golden light returned, pulsed around these possible futures. You spent years looking for God outside yourself, in church, in prayer, in other people's approval. Where I should have been looking, inside. God isn't separate from you, never was. The divine lives in your ability to choose love, to forgive, to stay open when everything hurts. Daniel saw his own soul again, the point of light he'd been before birth. It was glowing brighter now, not fully awake, but waking. This is who you are. Consciousness, eternal, made of the same creative force as everything else. I forgot. Everyone does. That's the deal. You forget so you can remember. And in remembering, you become conscious creators instead of automatic reactors. The thread of his life pulsed. every moment illuminated now, even the painful ones, especially the painful ones. Your losses weren't punishments. They were invitations to go deeper, to question more, to find what can't be lost. What can't be lost. The part of you that existed before Daniel Rourke, the part that will exist after. The consciousness observing all of this. Daniel felt it, that observer, that awareness behind his thoughts. It had always been there, quiet, patient, watching him suffer, watching him grow. That's the real you, the soul. Everything else, name, story, identity, is just costume for this particular play. So nothing matters? No, everything matters, because this is how consciousness knows itself, through experience, through you. The corridor pulsed with agreement. Daniel looked at his life again, the thread glowing. 45 years of living, learning, forgetting, remembering, and it was perfect. Even the broken parts, especially the broken parts. You accept it now? Daniel breathed, slowly, deeply. Yes. All of it? The divorce, the distance, the pain. Yes. Why? Because it brought me here, to this moment, to this understanding. The golden light blazed brighter. That's the breakthrough. Acceptance without resignation. Seeing purpose without needing to understand every detail. Daniel felt tears again, but different tears. Not grief, gratitude. His life made sense. Finally made sense. Not because it was easy, because it was his. You're ready to return now. Return where? To your life, but you won't be returning as the same person who left. Daniel looked at the being, this impossible guide who'd shown him everything. Will I see you again? Probably not in this form, but I'm always available. All of us are. You just have to ask, and mean it. How do I mean it? By being willing to hear answers that challenge you. Most people ask but don't really want to know. You were different. You were ready. The corridor began to shift, lighten, prepare for transition. Daniel felt peace, real peace, for the first time in years. His life wasn't fixed. Emma was still distant. His apartment was still empty, but he was different, and that changed everything. The spiral slowed, colors fading, patterns dissolving, the impossible space folding back into normal physics. Daniel felt weight returning. His body, solid, heavy, real. We're closing the corridor now. A panic flashed through him. Wait, I'll forget. I'll lose all of this. No, what was truly learned stays. It becomes part of you. But the details, the things you showed me, the details don't matter. The knowing does. And the knowing is already integrated. The desert began reforming around them. Sand, rocks, stars overhead. Daniel felt cold air on his skin, heard wind, smelled sage, physical reality returning. I don't want to leave. Your work isn't here, it's there. The being gestured toward the railroad tracks, visible now in the distance. Daniel's truck parked where he'd left it. His thermos, his tools, his ordinary life waiting. I'm nobody. What work could I possibly have? Your consciousness wearing a human body. Your work is to remember that, and to live from that knowing. That's it? That's the big mission? That's everything. Most humans never remember. They live and die asleep. You're awake now. Stay awake. The being moved closer, those black eyes holding Daniel's gaze one last time. Be kind to yourself. You'll slip back into old patterns. That's normal. But now you'll catch yourself, and that awareness changes the pattern. What about Emma? Love her, without needing her to respond a certain way. That's the practice. And Sarah? Forgive her. Forgive yourself. Let the past be complete. Daniel felt his throat tighten. So many questions still. So much he wanted to understand. But the being was already fading. Not leaving, just becoming less visible, less solid. You have everything you need. I don't feel like I do. You will. Give it time. The being placed one thin hand on Daniel's chest, right over his heart. Warmth spread through him. Not heat, something else, like light becoming physical. This is my gift to you, a reminder. When you doubt, when you forget, touch your heart, and remember tonight. The warmth intensified, then settled, became part of him. Daniel breathed. The air felt different now, alive, aware. The darkness isn't your enemy. It's just the absence of light, and you carry light now. Use it. How? By being present, by choosing love, by staying open even when it hurts. The being stepped back, translucent now, almost invisible. "Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for coming. We always come. You just have to be ready to see us." And then the being was gone. Not dramatically, just not there anymore. Daniel stood alone in the clearing. Desert night surrounding him, stars brilliant overhead. He looked at his hands, solid, real, human. But something inside him had changed, permanently. He walked back toward the tracks, each step feeling strange, like learning to walk again. His truck sat exactly where he'd left it, radio still on, static playing softly. Daniel checked his watch. 4:47 a.m. 2 hours. 2 hours since this started. It felt like days, lifetimes. He climbed into the truck, turned off the radio, sat in silence. The desert looked different, still empty, still vast, but not hostile, peaceful, almost welcoming. Daniel touched his chest, where the being had touched him. The warmth was still there, subtle but present. He closed his eyes, felt it pulse, and knew, really knew, that tonight had been real, not hallucination, not exhaustion, real. He'd met something beyond human understanding, been shown truths that changed everything, and somehow, impossibly, he had to go back to his regular life. Punch his time card, walk the rails, check for damage, file his report, but nothing would ever be normal again. Daniel started the truck, headed back toward the depot. The sun would rise in a few hours. His shift would end. He'd drive home, sleep, wake up, do it all again. But he'd be doing it differently, with presence, with purpose, with the knowledge that every moment mattered, that he mattered. The desert stretched out on both sides of the road, dark, beautiful, infinite. Daniel drove slowly, no rush anymore. He had all the time in the world, because time wasn't running out. It was unfolding, and he was finally awake to watch it happen. The stars above him pulsed, and deep in his chest, where the being had touched him, the light pulsed back, in rhythm, in harmony, in perfect love. 3 days after the encounter, Daniel sat in his truck before his shift, staring at his phone. Emma's contact photo, taken 4 years ago. Her smile bright, hair pulled back, before everything fell apart. His thumb hovered over the call button. The old fear rose up. What if she doesn't answer? What if she's annoyed? What if it makes things worse? But underneath the fear, something stronger. The warmth in his chest. The knowing. He pressed call. It rang. Once, twice, 3 times. His heart hammered. 4 rings. 5. Voicemail. "Hey, it's Emma. Leave a message." Beep. Daniel almost hung up, but he didn't. "Hey, sweetheart. It's Dad. I know we haven't talked much, and that's on me. I just wanted to call and tell you that I love you, that I'm sorry for being so absent, and that I'm here whenever you're ready. No pressure. Just, I'm here. Okay. Love you." He ended the call, sat back in his seat. His hands were shaking, but he felt good, lighter. He'd done it. Not perfectly, but honestly, that was enough. Daniel started his shift, walking the same tracks he'd walked 1,000 times, but everything looked different now. The desert didn't feel empty. It felt spacious, quiet in a peaceful way. He breathed consciously, in through his nose, out through his mouth, each breath a reminder. He was alive. He was here. He was awake. At work the next week, things shifted. Marcus, one of the older guys, was struggling with a rusted bolt, swearing under his breath, looking frustrated. Old Daniel would have walked past, stayed in his own world. New Daniel stopped. "Need a hand?" Marcus looked up, surprised. "Yeah, this thing's been fighting me for 20 minutes. Daniel grabbed a wrench. Together they got the bolt loose. "Thanks, man." "No problem." Marcus studied him for a moment. "You seem different lately. Everything okay?" Daniel smiled. "Yeah, actually, yeah, everything's okay." It wasn't a lie. His life hadn't magically fixed itself, but he was okay, really okay. Small moments like that became normal. Helping coworkers, making eye contact, actually listening when people spoke. At the grocery store, Daniel found himself smiling at the cashier, a young woman who looked exhausted. "Long day?" he asked. She blinked, surprised someone noticed. "Yeah, double shift. Hang in there, you're doing great." She smiled, small but genuine. "Thanks, I needed that." Daniel walked to his truck, feeling that warmth in his chest again. Growing, expanding. These tiny interactions mattered. He knew that now. Every exchange of frequency, every moment of genuine presence, it all counted. At home, Daniel started writing. Just notes at first, fragments of what he'd experienced. He bought a journal, black leather, simple. On the first page he wrote, "God never abandoned me. I abandoned myself. I forgot how to love, but love never forgot me." He stared at those words, felt their truth. Writing became a practice. Every night before bed, recording the shifts, the changes, the memories that surfaced. Dreams came, vivid ones, the corridor, the golden light, the being's black eyes. Sometimes he'd wake at 3:47 a.m., the same time he'd been on the tracks that night. He'd lie in bed, touch his chest, feel the warmth still there, and he'd know. It was real, all of it. Synchronicities appeared, numbers repeating, 11:11 on the clock, 3:47 everywhere. Songs on the radio with lyrics that matched exactly what he was thinking. Meeting people at the exact moment he needed to hear their stories. The universe was speaking, and for the first time in years, Daniel was listening. The emotional weight he'd carried began to lift, not all at once, gradually. Some days were hard. Old patterns surfaced, old pain, but now he could see them, name them, let them pass. They didn't own him anymore. He was part of something bigger, connected to something vast, not religious, not in the way he'd been taught, but spiritual, real, alive. 2 weeks after the encounter, Emma texted, "Got your voicemail. Thanks for calling." Daniel stared at the message. His heart raced. He typed, "Anytime you want to talk, I'm here. Love you." She didn't respond immediately, but that was okay. He'd planted a seed. It would grow in its own time. A month later, she called. "Hey, Dad." "Emma." "Hey." They talked for 15 minutes. Surface stuff mostly. Her classes, her friends. But it was genuine. Real. When they hung up, Daniel cried. Happy tears this time. Progress. Small, but real. The railroad tracks became his meditation space. Walking them at night, he'd remember. The corridor. The lessons. The light. He'd touch his chest, feel the warmth, and he'd choose, again and again, to stay present, to choose love, to remain awake. His co-workers noticed, asked what changed. Daniel would shrug. Just started paying attention. How could he explain? That he'd met a being from another world? That he'd seen the place souls wait before birth? That he'd felt the consciousness of Jesus? He couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But he lived it, and that was enough. One night, walking the tracks, Daniel stopped, looked up at the stars. Same stars he'd looked at for years. But now he knew he was connected to them, made of the same consciousness, the same creative force. He wasn't small, wasn't insignificant. He was the universe experiencing itself in human form. Daniel smiled, breathed deep, felt gratitude flood through him. "Thank you," he whispered to the desert, to the stars, to the consciousness that had always been listening. And somewhere, in frequencies beyond human hearing, the universe whispered back, "You're welcome. Keep going. You're doing exactly what you came here to do." December 31st, 2017, last night of the year. Daniel drove to the same spot on the tracks where it had all begun. Mile marker 23. He parked, got out, walked into the desert. The air was cold, stars brilliant overhead, wind quiet. He stood in the clearing, the place where the being had appeared, where his life had changed forever. "I came back," he said quietly. "Don't know if you can hear me, but I came back." Silence. Just wind, just desert. But it wasn't empty silence. It was full, alive, listening. Daniel breathed, felt his chest. The warmth still there, always there now. "Thank you," he said, "for showing me, for reminding me, for not giving up on me even when I gave up on myself." A breeze moved through the clearing. Warm, impossibly warm for a December night. Daniel smiled, felt tears on his cheeks. "I'm different now. Not perfect. Still mess up. Still forget sometimes. But I catch myself faster. I come back quicker." The stars pulsed above him. Or maybe that was just his perception. Hard to tell anymore where reality ended and consciousness began. "Emma called me last week. We talked for an hour. She's coming to visit next month. I didn't think that would happen. His voice cracked. He let it. I understand now why it all happened. The divorce, the distance, the pain. It wasn't punishment. It was the path, my path, the one I chose. The warmth in his chest expanded, filled his whole body. Daniel felt it clearly now. The presence, not the being. Something bigger. The consciousness behind everything. God, source, love, whatever name fit. It had always been there, always been with him. He'd just been too hurt to feel it, too closed to recognize it. Life isn't a punishment, he said. Saying it out loud made it more real. It's a classroom. Every hard thing, every loss, every moment I thought I was alone. They were all teachers. The desert listened, held space for his words. The pain wasn't failure. It was invitation. Invitation to go deeper, to question more, to find what can't be lost. Daniel looked up, at the infinite stars, at the vast darkness between them, and love. Love isn't something distant I have to earn. It's what I'm made of, what everything's made of. I just forgot. We all forget. He touched his chest, felt his heartbeat, steady, strong, alive. Jesus tried to show us, not that he was special, that we all are, that we're all carrying the same light. We just have to remember. A shooting star crossed the sky, quick, bright, gone. But Daniel saw it and smiled. I'm not waiting anymore for my life to start, for things to be perfect, for someone to save me. I'm living now, present, awake, as much as I can be. The wind picked up, gentle, like a hand on his shoulder. I promise to stay awake, to keep choosing love, to help others when I can, to be the presence I needed when I was lost. Daniel stood there, in the cold desert night, under infinite stars, and for the first time in decades, he felt complete peace. Not because his problems were solved. Emma was still rebuilding trust. Sarah was still gone. His life was still ordinary, but he understood now. This was exactly where he was supposed to be. The light doesn't come from outside, he whispered. It doesn't come from heaven or church or other people. It's inside. It was always inside. He placed both hands over his heart, felt it beating. The divine light doesn't return from the sky. It awakens inside the heart that remembers who it is. The words landed, settled, became truth. Daniel breathed, long and slow. He wasn't broken, never was, just human, learning, growing, remembering. Okay, he said to the universe, to the consciousness listening, to himself. I'm ready for whatever comes next. I'm ready. The clearing filled with that impossible warmth again, wrapping around him like an embrace. And Daniel knew, really knew, he wasn't alone, had never been alone. The Creator lived inside him, as him, through him. Every breath was prayer, every heartbeat was worship, every moment of genuine love was communion. This was the truth, simple, profound, life-changing. Daniel walked back to his truck, calm, centered, complete. He drove home as fireworks started in the distance, people celebrating the new year. Daniel smiled. Let them celebrate. He was celebrating something bigger, something that couldn't be contained in a single night. He was celebrating remembering. At midnight, Daniel stood on his apartment balcony, watching the sky light up with colors. He raised his coffee cup, toast to the universe. To waking up, he said, to staying awake, to love. The fireworks boomed, bright, beautiful, temporary, but the light in Daniel's chest burned steady, permanent, eternal. He'd found it, the thing he'd been searching for his entire life. Not in church, not in other people, not in achievements or approval. Inside himself, where it had always been waiting. The journey wasn't over. It never would be. But he was finally walking it consciously, with purpose, with presence, with love, and that made all the difference. Daniel finished his coffee, went inside, pulled out his journal. He wrote one final sentence for the year. I am not my story. I am the consciousness experiencing it, and that consciousness is love. He closed the journal, turned off the light, lay down. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new moments to choose. But tonight, he rested, grateful, awake, home, because home wasn't a place. It was a state of being, a frequency, a remembering, and Daniel had finally come home to himself.